Hey there, welcome. I am super excited to be hosting my first live event. We are talking about the spectrum of cultural terms today. If you are interested in learning about history, origins, terms that might be helpful in the workplace, or maybe they're not helpful in the workplace, then you are in the right place. I have been doing this training for a really long time, and I find that people have a lot of questions about what terms to use, which ones to not use. Am I doing the right thing? I don't know if there's a right thing. My goal today is to share information with you so that you can decide what is helpful, what isn't helpful, and hopefully open the door for you to do some of your own research. This is going to be a short amount of time. I'm going to cover as much information as possible in that short time. But I am hoping that you see areas that you can go and do your own research and certainly take some action. So before we get into things, I want to do a quick land acknowledgement. At Living Unapologetically, we don't have one standard one because our consultants are all over the country. And that means that our acknowledgements are going to be very individualized and personalized because we live in different places. So I want to honor the land that I am a guest on, the Gabrielino Tongva people. They have been stewards of this land for thousands of years and continue to be protected by the land today. And land acknowledgements are not just about making these statements. I have been doing my own research about historical context here and activism in this area. They are meant to prompt action. If you are not aware of the land that you are currently on, I encourage you to do that. Use this link. If you are already aware, great. And then I want to encourage you to take that next step, find out about the history that belongs to that area. And if there's any action that you can take, I'm sure there is. And part of doing this work is to build a relationship with the tribes where you live. Just wanted to say that. My hope is to spend about 30, 40 minutes with you. If we can get it shorter, that would be amazing. So we're going to set some context. We are going to go over the terms. Like I said, I'm going to breeze through them. Each of these terms could have their own several day long training. So this is like your introduction if you're not aware. If you are aware of them, they're just bite-sized pieces of information that's going to prompt you to learn more or do something after this. And I'll give you some tips for what you can do after this if you are looking to take action and do something. I want to honor that everybody's here for a reason, hopefully to learn something and to take what they know to the next level. And it's okay, whatever your level of expertise is, whatever your experience is, all of those things are valid. There's really no question here that I'm going to say is a dumb question or isn't one to be asking. I've been doing this work long enough to know that people don't know this stuff, and that is okay. I don't know a lot of things. Even in preparing for this, I did a lot of research and realized, oh my gosh, there's so much here. So please take the space, ask questions. I would really love to engage with you. I would love to know if there's any of these terms that are of interest to you. Is there anything that's standing out? Please share them. You can drop them in the chat. Is there anything that you're really interested in learning about? So I want to set some context for this conversation. I've been scouring the internet looking for all kinds of things to see what is there and what's most important. And before I go into the terms, I do believe context setting up front is super helpful. So the one thing I want to say is that all of these terms, except for I think one of them, were developed in academic and like research settings for the purpose of being applied to looking at healthcare or education settings. That's not a good or bad thing. I do think it's important context because a lot of these terms are evolving into other industries, and it's not always a plug and play type of situation. So there's some implications there to be thinking about. And there's so much overlap. Like there's so much overlap between these words now. They are evolving constantly, getting redefined, and this starting to feel like this. I do this to describe like they're meshed together. It's not super clear. There's not like delineations between them, especially now, which makes this so confusing. This can be an incredibly confusing, frustrating, whatever other feelings that come up for you. That makes a lot of sense because it's not clear. While time has gone on, there's some terms that might not be used as much. This isn't about which term is better or worse. This is really about let's explore what the origins are. Let's explore how helpful or not helpful they are. And there's a place for all of them too. I want to be clear that my lens today is about how applicable they are to the workplace, how employees are experiencing them, the impact I've seen them have in professional environments. It is also my lens. I am by no means the expert on everything. Like, I'm not the expert on everything. My experience is based on one, my own deep internal reflection, constant critiquing process to pull things out of me because I was not born and grown up into this idea of acceptance. Like, I just didn't grow up that way. So there's a lot I had to undo myself. There is a lot of work I've been helping organizations do and individuals and organizations do, and even work with my students. This is based on experiential expertise and a lot of research. I've been researching for a really long time, years to find information and help people make sense of it. So my lens, you get to decide what you choose to do with it today. And I also invite, if you've heard different information, then you've heard different information. That's absolutely okay. First term is tolerance. It's probably not a term that people are used to hearing in the workplace anymore, but it still floats around. I wanted to at least start there and say, from what I can tell, there's not like one person that has been named as this is the person who created this. It seems to be something that got more attention in the 40s during the Second World War. And there was a lot of work at the United Nations, UNESCO. I think that's how you say that. Sorry if I'm not saying that right. And it was centered around human rights and injustices that were happening. It was a legal conversation. There were many articles and agreements that were put forth by this organization to address what people were seeing in the world and the violence that was happening in the world and the hate and the discrimination. And in 1995, this group developed a Declaration of Principles of Tolerance. And in there's a lot of stuff outlined. Here are the things to be doing and not doing so that you can be a more tolerant person, more tolerant country. They outlined a bunch of stuff. In this declaration, it was defined as respecting and accepting people for who they are. There's various forms of expression as a human. Can we accept all of these differences and have a harmony around it? And what I found was super interesting about this at the time is that it came out and said that the way to tolerance was through education. And the call to action was for institutions and programs to be developed or to implement access to education. This is very important when we think about how these terms are taught. It's very knowledge-based and very in our brains. It's like a cognitive conversation. And it hasn't necessarily made its way too much into our bodies and our feelings into the behavioral aspect. So that feels important in terms of setting the stage for how we are evolving in this industry. In the workplace today, people don't feel good about this term. It's just not something that people gravitate towards. And honestly, most people associate it with being tolerant or not, which means I'm going to endure something even though I don't like it. When we think about people, it's meaning I'm going to endure you even though I don't like you. So it doesn't invite collectivism. It doesn't invite connection. It doesn't invite the creation of safe and healthy spaces very much. Like, it just doesn't do that. So I don't feel as strongly about any of the terms as I do as this one. It's just not, it hasn't gone well in workplace settings because of this vibe and feeling behind it. So if this is something that you use, this would be the only one that I'm like, you might want to think about doing that differently. Now we're going to talk about awareness. Awareness is not something that I can see as attached to one person for coining this term, but it's one that we use a lot. The one thing that has emerged is someone named James Green, who published a book on providing culturally aware social services. So it was really meant to impact the social service, human service agency. And this person defined awareness as having an awareness, a frame of mind, a sense that we are different and that's okay. Can we be open to it? Can we be flexible to the fact that people are different than us? And that there is this inner process that exists in being culturally aware. Am I internally aware of these differences? And can I be flexible and open to that instead of being rigid? Now, it has evolved since then. It really feels like this generic term that people are using. It's not a bad thing. It's just, it is what it is. People usually say awareness to say they're aware that there's differences out there, or maybe sometimes referring to doing the work. And at the end of the day, a lot of people associate awareness with, again, like learning something. It's in your brain. You know about it. You know it exists. So it's not action oriented per se, which is one of the criticisms, especially as it relates to doing DEI work in workplaces. I can honestly say that staff are not attached to this because cultural awareness tends to lead to very surface level interactions, very surface level relationships. I liken it to, have you ever been in an organization and then there's these like awareness activities where people are sharing about their culture, sharing food? That's not a bad thing. It's just if the conversation lives there, it's really not action oriented. You're going to get bits and pieces of information here and there, and it just won't translate to anything solid. It won't build a foundation. And it's certainly going to be really hard to get to systems change through that mechanism. I will share a little bit later as we go through these terms. Everything I'm saying is not so concrete that if you use this term, it then means it won't translate. So I do need to be careful about me saying that. But what I do want to communicate is these terms, the language that we are using, can truly impact what we are doing and what we are not doing. When we talk about co-creating language later, I'll explain how this doesn't have to be a stopping point, but I do think this information is helpful for you. All right, sensitivity or intercultural sensitivity. Milton Bennett created this term in 1986, and we refer to it as cultural sensitivity today. There are 6 stages of development that this person created, and within those stages of development, there are 6 points on the scale. And I don't know, I have my own bias when it comes to scales because people really like scales, and I think they have a place in this work. Anywho, you could do a little bit more research, but this scale in terms of the stages of development range from complete denial of differences in what someone's experiencing all the way to integration of self into differences. And the rating points are from highly ethnocentric, which is, again, like self, you see yourself and the world around you, versus highly ethno-relative, which is you exist in a whole. I hope that makes sense. And Milton described cultural sensitivity this way, in that there's a recognition and an appreciation of differences between people, which is really great. And you do that without judgment. And there's this part of it where you are actively seeking to know the differences, know the people that you're interacting with. So I think that's a great thing to do, but it still is in the head. Like you understand that there's a difference and you want to know what that difference is. And the scale is meant to help you see how you're responding to other people. So that can be helpful in the workplace. This approach is very theoretical. It gives people a sense of how they are interacting with people and what they might see in themselves. However, if you really get into the model, the solutions and the interactions that are being looked at are really about other people. So what you're doing with other people, that's an important part, but I really think it misses this deeper introspective part where not just what are you doing with other people, but what is happening in you is missing. And people still equate sensitivity with having to be careful and delicate. And honestly, it can invite fear, which can also get in the way of doing this type of work. So I think It's an okay term. Again, I'm biased. Okay. So it's an okay term. If you are using this, I actually am curious if you have seen or experienced any of this. And if you haven't, okay. I would just say, like, if you're in this area and you're not loving it, I would look to see, like, where can I evolve? And maybe some of these other terms will get you there. Now, competence is probably the most talked about. Oh, I see you, Pamela. Yes. Yes. Intra and inter. Yeah. So inter is here and intra is whatever this is, what I'm trying to say, between people. Thank you for that. Yeah. So competence has been a term that's used a lot, like a lot. And it means a lot of things. If there's a term that means a lot, it's this one. In the 80s, Terry Cross developed a different 6-step framework that helped describe what people are doing and seeing in themselves and other people on a spectrum. I think a spectrum is a nicer way to look at things because people do fall on a spectrum. And this person defined it as a set of behaviors, a set of practices that exist in us and in systems that can help improve our cross-cultural interactions. That was the original intent. So I just want you to know that, but it means a lot of other things. Honestly, it has evolved to be this like generally accepted umbrella term. It's almost like if you're doing the work, you're doing cultural competence work. It feels like that. And there are many professional organizations, associations that use cultural competence as the way to tell professionals how to ethically operate, how to legally operate. And it's not a bad thing. And I think that there's work being done in those associations to change how cultural competence is framed because it was highly knowledge based. If you think about what I was saying earlier with tolerance and how the framing around how people should learn about and prevent intolerance is through education, this had those vibes for quite some time. Through all of its manifestations, usually you're going to see competence have these things associated with. There's going to be that internal worldview, there's going to be developing an awareness or positive attitude towards other people that are different than you. There is the importance placed on gaining information. And then there's the part about developing skills. I will say that this still feels like a very knowledge cognitive conversation in our head. That is the sense that employees have today. If you're competent in something, that means that you learned the information. There does feel like there is an overemphasis on gaining an awareness of the differences and the similarities. And the biggest thing for me is there is an increase in learning about the skills that are needed to be culturally competent, but not necessarily arriving to not just learning about the skills, but developing the skills and doing that harder work. That feels like it's missing a lot. And because this is the common experience, it's really easy for this to stay in that theory place and for people to talk about the things that they are learning. It's very easy to do that. It doesn't mean that's what you're doing, but this is a slippery slope and it can absolutely hinder action because people love that feeling of knowing things. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it can get in the way. Now, humility is one I love. I think a lot of people are attaching to that now, especially at work, which is a great thing. In 1998, Melanie Tervalon and Marie Garcia, they went beyond competence on purpose. They went beyond competence to create cultural humility, which is really about this lifelong commitment to self-evaluation, critiquing self, knowing what you're doing. And there's a recognition of power imbalances, power privilege imbalances, and doing something about it, not just saying it exists, doing something about it. And one that kind of gets left is the institutional accountability piece. There's work to be done individually, and then what does it look like in the workplace? Oh, cool. I always experience this term as peak colonialism, to be honest. Oh, I love that, Kim. I love that. That's great. That's great. I experience a lot of these terms, like, depending on who it is, some people peak somewhere else, but I totally get you. Alrighty, where are we at? Mm. Okay. It's evolved. It was originally developed to address inequities in healthcare. And now it's being used across industries, which is really nice. It is highly regarded in the DEI space because it's moved beyond that head stuff, encourages deep internal work. It's got the systems piece. So anyone that's here doing this type of work may find that they are experiencing different stuff in the workplace. And that comes with its own caveat. I would say that if you're looking for more behavior change and accountability in the work that you're doing, this will invite that. And pay attention to this is what I've seen a lot. There is a part of cultural humility that encourages people to not be the expert in everything. People are experts in themselves. So what I've seen is people fall back and say things like, well, I'm not the expert. I'll let people tell me about them. And that's great, but they take that back seat and stay back there. Like that's not the essence of cultural humility. And because it's easy to fall back into that, pay attention because people will name that they're doing cultural humility work because they're not taking that expert role, but then they just kind of avoid introspection. They avoid systems work. They avoid accountability. And that's not what it was for. Be careful about that. Responsiveness has a place in my heart. I'm here as a person that wears many hats. It's a place in my heart because we are doing this work at the Academy for Professional Excellence. We are integrating this into our organization. I won't do a whole spiel about that, but I am biased. I really appreciate this approach. It feels like it's another layer on top of humility. That's why I love it so much. Oh, yes, of course, Kim. So in the 90s, Gloria Ladson Billings, she was looking at what was happening in the school settings, and she came up with culturally relevant, responsive pedagogy. I never say that word right. Never say that right. And she developed it to create a different experience for students, one that would bring in other experiences and ways of knowing and wisdom and knowledge that weren't mainstream. Because school settings are very taught one particular way, there's a way to learn, there's the topics to learn. She really was like, that's not it. That's not it for everybody. This works for one group, especially because it's built on white principles, white ways of knowing, white supremacy culture. And then right alongside her, Geneva Gay added a layer to Gloria's work to develop culturally responsive teaching. And she honed in on the teacher's responsibility to know what they were doing and why they were doing it, and to be curious about what they were personally experiencing. How were they showing up? What tools were they using? What needs do students have in the classroom? How are they different? What can people do to meet these various needs? I really started questioning that and asking people to think about what you can do differently, and it starts inside. I really, really loved that part about cultural responsiveness. As it's evolved, it still encompasses this really critical self-analysis to know yourself. And I'm not talking about the surface level understanding of, I like this and I don't like that. What are you physically feeling in you that's causing you to respond or see somebody a certain way? What are you helping more people than others? Why is that happening? It's really hard work if you allow yourself to do that. And just like humility, it absolutely addresses the power privilege dynamics. It holds that accountability lens to do something about that, name it. That should be part of that introspective work. To me, the extra layer is you're doing all of this because your engagement and interactions with others needs to not just be based on you. What do other people need and how are you shifting? So it's more of a relational experience and meets more than one person's need. Now, in the workplace, it is known for its behavior, orientation, its equity and justice lens. It isn't as mainstream at work just yet. I think some places are arriving there, but I would say it adds an extra layer of responsibility. So if you're doing cultural humility work and you want extra on top, I would look into cultural responsiveness, and that emphasis on individual behavior change is a total game changer and can absolutely help people move into action. Cultural safety. I love cultural safety. It isn't common in the workplace. I don't even know if you've heard of this before. If you have, awesome. I want to know what you think about that. So in the 90s, Dr. Idiopathy Ramsden and the Maori nurses in New Zealand were seeing something happen in their area. And they were very curious about why people in the area weren't trying to receive services in the healthcare system. And they realized over the course of time, there's a lot of historical trauma and oppression that happened to these people as a result of what was happening in the healthcare system. They did a lot of deep diving, had a lot of conversations, not just the traditional research stuff and surveys, like conversations, and realized that there was so much about what healthcare professionals were doing that was impacting this area so much that they started to develop the capacity of the people that were providing healthcare services and framed it around the safety of people receiving the services and holding a very strong line around accountability for those providing the services. Its core meaning is it's an outcome. It's creating a safe environment for people. They can be themselves. There is no judgment. It doesn't matter what it is that they define as safe. They have their own needs. All of that's okay. And we are being curious about what we need to do to maintain that and not interrupt that, not reinforce harmful practices. It also invites a shared understanding, a shared learning. It's conversational. It's really relational. I really love it because of that, and that you get to safety by that relational piece and deep understanding. It has evolved. It's been applied to other populations and looking at like how they experience healthcare settings. Again, it's not very common in a workplace, but it can be very powerful. And it's more of an outcome to achieve. So what you might think of is how would another approach that we just went over, using culturally responsive practices to get to a place of safety is a good way to think about that. There are some key elements related to this. If you are wanting to create safety, cultural safety, you're going to find that leaders are going to be responsible for creating safety. Of course, everyone's in an environment, but leaders have an added layer of that responsibility. And part of that responsibility is recognizing the history, the social context, the political context, the relational context, and how that changes how employees are experiencing individuals in the workplace altogether. And it requires that people pay a lot of attention to themselves, their biases, and how it's contributing to unsafe environments. And the last part of that is that every person decides what is safe for them. We don't create these standard definitions of safety and decide if someone is safe or not. This relationship that we are establishing helps me understand other people's needs and what safety means for them. And we're co-creating that and we're adjusting as we interact together. So at work, I think it's super effective because it can help people acknowledge and address the barriers that exist relationally between peer-to-peer, supervisory to employee. It's newer. So if you aren't that far along in your DEI journey, it might feel like quite the shift. This might be too much, and that's okay. It's okay. If you're further along, this might feel like a natural next step. It's up for you and whoever you are working with to decide. It's very accountability focused. It's very behavior and action focused. So to me, I'm like, that's what I want. If we can have safe places, that would be the best. And because it's less common, just keep in mind if this is something that you're entertaining, it's going to take time for people to learn what this is, to co-create that understanding. All of these take time for co-creating that understanding. I just want to check in with you and ask, is there anything that's resonating with you? Are you challenged by anything? Let me know how you feel. Or if you are like many people and you feel like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of information. What am I supposed to do? What is the right thing to do? There's no right thing. There's no right thing to do. And that's okay. The first thing I want to say and normalize is this is changing so much. The words are changing. The landscape is changing. It's really hard to stay on top of things. That's why I really emphasize the importance of co-creating a language. I'll talk about that in 1 second. But it just feels like it almost feels like a competition too. Like whichever people like a term, mine's better than yours and it's constantly evolving. It's a kind of a mess out there. And the same goes with the DEI, like the term DEI and the other manifestations. People feel like it's lost meaning. And I get it. I 1000% get it. Because it has. Because people are chasing the right terms. I would say that If DEI was done really well, it would look like all of the manifestations it's taken on. It really would. At Living Unapologetically, we stand firm on DEI as our umbrella term. That means something very specific to us. We have some very core practices that are woven into it. And we believe that if we do this right, it's going to include everything. It's going to include justice. It's going to include accessibility. It's going to include anti-racism work. It's going to include all of that. And I want to talk for a moment about the importance of shared language, because if we chase other people's terms and they start to shift and change as they have been, it's almost like we're putting our identity and all of our hopes onto someone else's stuff. And when it changes, it's like what do I do from here? People get very lost and frustrated. There is a process that you can go through in your organization where you can lean on what other people have created. But I highly recommend that you think about spending time co-creating what that exactly means in your organization. Because while I can Google a definition for, let's say, cultural humility, because there's very clear definition for that, what does that mean in this organization? And to invite a lot of people to this table and to be talking about what that means and use the language in your organization. So there's a co-creation process in there. Major challenge is breaking through the hyper-individualism, as a major U.S. American value. Many will not consider adjusting. That's true. That's very true. It's like white supremacy culture thing. People are individualized, don't see the value in collectivism, communal sharing. And so that's absolutely true. If people aren't wanting to do that work, this isn't even going to be for them. It's really not. And that really sucks. But what you're saying is true. Thank you for lifting that up. So last thing I'll say is, if you want to do different, I highly recommend that you go through a process, not the process which you're just hoping to get words on a paper or a screen. That's not what I'm saying. The process of the people coming together and the exploration about what things mean individually, what it means for the organization, what people want to see and experience, what people's needs are. And if you would like some help, we did create it's like a guide that could be used to guide discussions of groups that are coming together to want to figure out what that means for them. And I will just say, top of the list, this guide is not about it's not about what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. It is always about how you're doing it. Some people will get a guide and jump into the process and check off. I love checking stuff off. Check it off to complete the task. It is way more about the communal experience. So if this is something that you're looking to do, please take advantage of that. It's easy for staff to get frustrated that we're spending more time on language. This particular process isn't about the language. It's about co-creation. It's about safety setting. It's about shared understanding and how you get there and evolving as time goes on. Do you have any questions, and how are you feeling? And this would be where I would love to see your faces and feel your energy. What's in your heart? What's in your mind? Nice. I learned a lot. I really like how you broke down each term. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Shiva. I really do hope that you learned something today. It's hard to do both things. I appreciate how you provided context for the terms and origins. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Kim. I much appreciate you. Yeah, I'm around via email, via LinkedIn. Please share with people in your network if you find it would be helpful. Sending you all of these good vibes. All right, y'all. Bye.